The WNBL season has kicked off for 22-23. My name is Alex Catalano, and today, along with Kristen Sims, two of our wonderful basketball experts, I'm flattering myself a little bit with that with the term expert, but Kristen definitely is. We're going to be running through the talking points from round one of WNBL. Kristen, how good is it to see basketball, women's hoops back on the big stage this season?
Oh, so happy to have it back after still got that high from the World Cup. So it's nice we didn't have to wait too long to get women's basketball back.
Absolutely. High from the World Cup. A bunch of the players, I think, are still a bit sore after that. At least a couple of them that I spoke to. I know Steph Talbot managed to get a few weeks off, but a few of the other girls were saying, how did she manage to get 3 weeks? We got about 2 days. I think Annalie Maley said about as much on the WNBL show as well. But the quality of basketball definitely didn't suffer despite the players maybe still needing a little bit of rest. It was a great quality round all round, some real high scores going up, and it all kicked off on Wednesday night, WNBL Wednesdays, as they're calling it, with the Boomers getting a big win in the grand final rematch over the Lynx. Kristen, I was really impressed by the new players the Boomers had to show out, and that is definitely one of my big ticks from them. I think a lot of people were a little bit trepidant when it came to their squad, given that you try not to mess with the championship squad too much, and they didn't. They had a few players leave. Obviously, Ezzy Magbagor heading over to Europe, Lindsay Allen not coming back for the season, but the new players that came in are certainly impressed.
Absolutely. I mean, you're always going to have movement. You can't really help that at all. But let's be honest, they did a very good thing getting hold of Christy Wallace. She had an amazing WNBA season, and anytime she hit the court in the World Cup, she showed exactly what she's capable of doing. And I think they're so well off for adding her to the roster. I got to admit, I was probably one of those people who was a little bit unsure of how they'd go, but I feel like we're going to see the Boomers sitting up the top of the ladder for most of this season.
I mean, I think it's a fair enough concern. You bring in a new coach, bring in a new floor general, and you don't really know, I guess, how the team's going to look, especially given Lindsay Allen has been in that role for the past 3 seasons. But you're right on Wallace. Like she's so exciting to watch, and she's gotten so much praise over the past few seasons. Obviously, she's an Opal now and is not going to be leaving the Opal squad anytime soon. But she's just so active on defense. Her steals early, I thought, really set the tone as well. But you talk about other players coming in for big roles. Olivia Nelson-Ododa, we know that Ezzy Magbagor was always going to leave a big hole, but this young lady, her presence under the post, I thought she was fantastic. She was crashing the boards, and she looked like she's going to form a great partnership with Kayla George across this season.
Absolutely. I mean, massive shoes to fill with Ezzy there, but I was, yeah, quite impressed at the chemistry that she seemed to bring, as you said, especially with Kayla George. So I can only see that getting better. And as you said, touching on coaching as well, I think a lot of people were quite unsure there, but the history that Chris Lucas has, it was only going to be good really for the Boomers.
Yeah, definitely. He showed up well for his first game. On the other side of the coin, though, the Lynx, they've had a lot of players change out this year, Kristen. Three really big names. They're two imports from last season, Marina Mabrey and Jackie Young, both not returning. And of course, their skipper from last year, Darcy Garvin, too. They looked really different on offense. And I thought, especially early, they looked like they were struggling to not just play through Sammy Whitcomb. She had a great game, but I didn't know who else was really taking shots in that game.
Yep, that's definitely one thing I noticed, was that it was the Sammy Whitcomb show. I mean, you could do worse, but you can't run your entire offense just off one player. I mean, she was hot. She started really hot. 30 points is good on any day and something that people would want to see regularly, but you just can't rely on that one person. I think they're going to do well though with Chloe Bibby. She looks like she's going to come in really nicely and she's gelling well. Obviously, she has that experience with Lauren Scherf, who's also come into the side this year. So there is that little bit of chemistry, but I think in the hands of Ryan Petrick, they're still going to be fine, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, definitely. I had question marks over their sort of bigs rotation and the forwards as well, and I thought those were concerns that they'll definitely want to look at throughout the rest of the year. You talked about Bibi, but touch on her a bit more in the Spirit games. I thought she really showed out in that one. Not a great start for the Lynx. I think there's clear foundations to build off. I think we all sort of expect them to drop off a little bit this year. And 2 losses in opening weekend is not the best start, but I like what they've got in terms of, the guard group's great. They've obviously got shooting talent, like you mentioned with Bibby. It's just going to be how they turn it around and get that chemistry together over the next few weeks. Another couple of teams that looked a bit more different, the Caps and the Bendigo Spirit. Caps were obviously going to be a very, very young team coming into the season, a few veterans, but mostly off the back of their youngsters. But the Bendigo Spirit, Kristen, have stocked up on talent, they've stocked up on experience, they've stocked up on players that used to be there and have come back home for another run. And they've shown this weekend that they might be a team that's going to be a premiership or championship fancy, sorry.
Very, very exciting look to the Spirit. As we know, they did kind of build towards the end of last season, but yeah, lots and lots of changes. And now when you look at it, you've got an MVP, and to me, it feels like they've built a team around an MVP in Annalie Maley. Kelsey Griffin was just incredible in that first game, 25 points and 12 rebounds, like just turning back the clock kind of stuff. It was the Spirit's third highest score ever in their history. So that tells you a lot about, I guess, the sort of gameplay. They're definitely going to be shooting high, and it certainly paid off. 105 is a massive score, and I think everybody get excited about the Spirit.
Oh, I'm on board the Spirit train. My preseason predictions, I had them right in that top four. It's hard to sort of choose a couple of them, but they're one of my locks, especially with how they played this weekend. Maley, brilliant once again. You're right in that they built the team a bit more around her, and it seems to be really paying dividends nice and early. Another team that's had a coaching change, and just like with the Boomers as well, a lot of players that have come in from elsewhere, and you might have thought that it'd be a bit of a different look. I thought Kelly Wilson was a player that maybe didn't stand out as much on the scoring end across the weekend, but 9 assists in her first game back with Bendigo. I thought she was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the environment that they've built must be bringing it out in these players, because they just all seem to know where the other one is, and the way they are on the court, like, it brings out performances like that. So I'd be scared if I was coming up against him again this week, because I just feel like they're ready and raring to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Abby Werung, another one as well, who I thought was fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
first game, she was strong, 13 points, but then the second game against the Caps, I thought just keep giving it to this girl to shoot, because she was that hot in this game. 58 from the field for 19 points. I think she's going to be such a brilliant part of this team across the year. All in all, New Look Spirit is a big tick, I think, all round. I can't wait to see them in person when they get down to Melbourne. I'm sure everybody's going to be raring to watch them. They were a great team to watch last year. I think they're going to be even better to watch this year.
Definitely.
Saturday night, the huge headliner, obviously, Kristen, in the Southside Flyers and Adelaide Lightning game was the return of Lauren Jackson. We haven't seen her play on Australian shores for a very long time, unless you were one of the lucky ones that got to see her in the NBL 1 season. Moving across New South Wales, of course, with the Albury-Wodonga Bandits, but it's just special, I think. Above anything else in this game, it's just special to see LJ back on court and doing what she does best. She was a menace.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was beside myself when she first came back to the NBL 1, and now here we are, however many months later, and we still get to watch her, and we still get to see her. She was one of my idols growing up, so being able to see her again, it just, I don't know, I can't help but get emotional every time I see it. And it's not just good for the game, but it's just good for sport everywhere. And you're right, she was a menace again. She's just hard to stop. She's got one of the best basketball brains you'll ever see, and she's got everything else to go and back it up. So she's hard to stop, and that's just good for the Flyers.
I hope she's not feeling too old this season, because some of these kids playing in these games weren't even born when LJ first hit the scene. It might be a long year for her in that regard. But we talk about the kids, and there was a bit of a positive on the Lightning end. Obviously, they were in this game at times, but the Flyers got on runs. They got on runs. In the end, didn't end up going their way. But a debut to remember for Izzy Borlase, Kristen. This young lady obviously has sporting pedigree in her blood, but that's a huge statement to make. 25 points at 83% from the field, along with 9 boards, nearly a double-double in her debut. I don't really know what to say about her. 30 minutes on court. She was the highest minute, or second highest minute getter for the Lightning, alongside Stephanie Talbot. You've really announced yourself when you're doing something like this in your debut.
Oh, definitely. She was always going to come out and have a good start. It's, you know, I think she wants to play her own game and her own way, and step out of the shadow of her family and become her own identity. And I love that she came out and debuted like that. You just couldn't hope for any better. And to, you know, be the second highest time on the court, just behind Steph Talbot, like that also says a lot. That means, you know, Nat has got faith in her and her ability and is going to back her in. And I think if she's getting that support, she'll continue to play that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to the second game of the round for the Spirit and the Lynx. We touched on it just before, but second win of the round for the Spirit, second loss for the Lynx. Sammy Whitcomb didn't really get involved in this game all too much, just the 4 points for her. The offense, we mentioned it looked very reliant on Whitcomb game one, and this one, when she wasn't able to put up those shots, they only scored 66 points, which was the worst of the round overall. What did you sort of make of them in this game?
Um, they really did struggle. Whitcomb tried to back up the first game performance, but she just was not shooting well. I think she was 2 from 13, which is just really unlike her. She still played her 4 minutes, and they were still trying to use her, but it just wasn't happening. Bibi definitely stepped up in that absence, and she played really well and she shot really well. But I think they're still trying to rely just too much on one person, and they're going to have to expand on that if they're, well, firstly going to score more. You know, you're never going to win a game only scoring 66 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the players across the roster, and Bibi obviously was the one that was getting the ball in her hands the most to shoot. 19 attempts at 63% shooting, which was a pretty good night. I think Alex Sharp maybe needs to be utilized a little bit more. She's been starting off the bench. I think maybe you want to get her on court from the get-go. She's obviously a great bench player and always provides a bit of spark. She's good on the boards as well, 12 in this game, but I don't know if maybe that needs to be what Ryan Petrick needs to tweak and get sharp into the game from the get-go.
Yep, yeah, I think that's probably a good start. And I also think that we'll see, you know, Amy Atwell settle a bit more into the league, with a little bit more experience as she sort of gets used to it again. You know, we know she didn't have the greatest experience while she was in the WNBA, but she's a good shooter. That's what she's known for. That's what she did when she played in Hawaii, and I will expect to see that again from her, probably over the next few rounds as she grows in her confidence a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about the Spirit building the team a bit more around Maylee and giving her the best possible opportunities to score and, of course, get the boards as well. 19 points, 12 rebounds. It looks like she's got a bit more help, though, I think, this season. At times, she was one of the lone rangers, really, the first half of last year before they really built that connection together. But we mentioned Werong before. Megan McKay as well had a great game, and she was taking heaps of shots too. It just looks like they've got a little bit more structure around letting Maylee shine and getting players to do more around her.
Absolutely. I think I saw in the first, like, I know they've only played 2 games, but I think they've got like 4 players or something averaging over 16 points per game already. That's massive. You know, that means they're not relying on one person, and they know as a team they've got options. So if Maylee's covered, they can just go to someone else. And also, that then draws, the defense to that player, and it frees Annalie up again. So I don't know how you're going to stop him, but it's going to take a lot of work, which is great for them.
Absolutely. Another one, like I said, they're in my top four. I'm hoping they prove me right because they look very, very good off opening weekend. A team on the other side of the coin, the Lynx we mentioned dropping their first two games. So did the Capitals, and it didn't get much better in this one against the Fire. It was a huge loss, 104 to 68. Gemma Potter confirmed ACL. Jade Melbourne possibly spending some time on the sidelines too. It's sort of falling apart early doors for the Caps already.
Yeah, it's sad to see. I think I expected big things. Obviously, really good coaching appointment in Kristen Veal. But I just think they're just young, their main import didn't really play in her WNBA season. So she's largely untested. And that's got to impact things as well. Coming off an injury like that, it's not just the physical stuff, it's mental as well. So that's going to take a little bit of time for them to settle, I think, as a team and just get used to the new structures, and then we'll see them come together. Much like the Lynx, you're not going to win too much with only 68. And I think they've largely built around Jade Melbourne, but you've got to remember she's only 20. She is mature for her age when you listen to her, and we know she's had the experience in the Opals camps and things like that, but she's still young, and that's a lot of responsibility to have on your shoulders to be running that team already.
Yeah, I think as well, you talk about them being a young team, and it's clear that they're still finding their footing. 20 turnovers in that game as well. So they're losing the ball a lot, which is for a young team that's already on the back foot. It's not doing their confidence any help, I think. Going down, giving up a lot of ball on offense and not managing to score much or really get the ball back much. I thought that I was a little bit iffy on the bigs as well before the season, but I thought in this game, Bunce and Takaya Cohen did a good job on the boards, 20 boards between them. But I think they just seem that little bit less ready, I would say, to go and compete for a finals this year compared to some of the other teams, especially when you put them up against the Fire, Kristen, who they only got the one game to go off, but maybe looking like one of the best offenses in the league this year.
Oh yeah, they've been really, really good. I mean, I was excited to see how they were going to go. And again, Steph Reed is just going to be one of those names, I think, that we're all going to be talking about as the season goes on. And I can't see the Fire really slowing down too much either, not with scores like that.
I mean, 14 assists, like that's the kind of stat line you expect to see out of the NBL one with these established players playing against kids, not playing against other WNBL level players.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it just shows, how they've been working in the off season, and they've just been quietly going about their business up there in Townsville. And I think they've shocked a few people, which again, great for the league. It's what we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Another team that I think always just quietly flies under the radar a little bit. Everyone counts out Townsville a little bit before the season, but
Yeah.
yeah, they've got quality across the floor. We know what Lauren Nicholson can do. We know what Steph Reed can do. Tiana Hawkins had a strong game as well, a double-double first up for her, which is a great start to her season. But even I look at this squad and I think compared to last year, Satina Akuso was someone who took a huge step once again last year. It was the sixth woman of the year before, became a regular starter. Now she's back. It looks like starting off the bench. But I kind of think that speaks to the quality they've got on the floor. When you've got a player like her not getting minutes in the starting five, I'm really high on Townsville and what they showed first up. I think they're going to be a team to watch just quietly across the year as it continues to develop. I guess just more generally out of this round, Kristen, one of the big headlines has been the broadcast for the WNBL. We knew preseason that was going to be a bit of a different setup. We've got the Wednesday games over on ESPN, and the rest of the round is broadcast on Channel 9. But there was a lot of teething issues, should we say, first off the bat, issues with the shot clock and the regular clock on the ESPN broadcast, issues with audio quality and video quality across the Channel 9 games. What did you sort of make of that across the weekend, and I guess how it impacted the broadcasting of the games?
I got to admit, I was pretty disappointed. When it was all first announced, I was very excited. I thought, great, we're heading in the right direction. This is what the league needs. We're getting it back to free to air. But, the Wednesday night on ESPN was, the Perth uniforms were showing up pink instead of red. It just it's bad for the fans, but even worse than that, it's bad for the players. They work really hard and they deserve to have better than that. So I hope that, I mean, I know the WNBL has been working really hard. Let's just hope that, the people that they've trusted to supply the broadcast step up this weekend.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's one of those things where the quality of the presentation reflects the quality of the league as well, and the WNBL is above what the quality of this weekend showed. I think when you compare it to women's leagues, not only in Australia but across the world, it is one of the highest quality professional women's leagues in Australia. I would say it's second only to the Super Netball in terms of the level. We see so many great imports come over year after year that clearly want to play in Australia because it is high quality. So it not is not going to grow as well as it can if it isn't to the level of what we expect from an NBL game, for instance, which has some of the highest quality production values of any sport in Australia, any league. I think that needs to be the minimum standard for what the WNBL can be presented as on TV because you go to a game and it's nothing like what you see on television, which I don't think should be the goal of a broadcast whatsoever. My hope is that it improves a lot across this season because as it stands, it's only going to turn people away from the game, not make them want to go and watch more of it. I guess on the positive side of the round, we talked about the quality of the basketball we saw throughout the weekend, Kristen, and I think that everybody likes seeing high scoring games, not just in basketball, but any sport. Three teams cracking the ton this weekend, really high quality games all round in terms of the shooting and the scoring. I think just as an entertainment product, forget the broadcast, it was a really good showing of what we have to offer.
Definitely. It was really exciting start in the first game. Obviously, the Boomers came out, they scored their 104, and then the Spirit backed it up with their 105. And the quality of the basketball was great in both of those games. And then you had a good old arm wrestle in the Flyers versus the Lightning, which didn't quite crack the ton, but made it to 99. So, I don't think you could have really hoped for a better basketball-wise round one. If that's what we've got to go on, we're in for a really, really great season.
Unless you're a Lynx or a Caps fan, in which case you probably want the season to start getting towards the end already. The other thing as well, fan engagement and being able to get the players involved, taking photos, signing, obviously the LJ, the fact that she was there at all was already a huge draw for fans. But I think that's another great part of what sport is, and especially at the level of WNBL, where it's not one of the more covered sports in Australia. It means as much to the players, I think, as it does to the fans.
Yeah, definitely. You're very, very lucky that we get the access that we do to the players, and it's nice that after COVID that we've got the signings and things like that back for the fans and the young kids because, all those kids that are running around, they're the ones that keep the league going as they grow up. So to build those connections and to have contact with their heroes, that just means everything. So it's so good to see.
I can't count the amount of players that were putting up pictures with fans post game and that kind of thing up on their Instagram stories and that as well. So it's clear that it's great for the league, it's great for the players, and it's great for everybody involved in it. Just a quick look overseas. It was not the hugest week for Aussies playing overseas. I think the European seasons are getting underway. And obviously they run from about October through to April or May. They're long seasons over there, especially even with the WNBA. It's not even that long. But the performance I wanted to highlight from this weekend, Kristen, was Alana Smith, former Adelaide Lightning player. She's overplaying for Gorzów in Poland, I believe. A lot of the girls are playing over in Hungary, Poland at the moment. Nancy Magdor and Darcy Gardner in Hungary, that sort of area of Europe. But she had a brilliant game on the weekend, 23.7 rebounds, 3 steals. She's doing it internationally, which is fantastic. I think we talk about the Lightning last season a lot as Alana Smith and Steph Talbot, they were the two that were really pushing them through. Do you think they're sort of missing her to start this season?
I think so. She's just such a class player. She's clean and she does work both ends, but you can rely on her to score. But with that debut from Izzy Borlace, well, they might not be missing her for too much longer.
No, a new 1-2 punch, I think, for the Lightning this year. If she keeps up that form, which I certainly hope she does, because it's a brilliant spectacle to watch. Look ahead to round two, and there's some big games, of course, across the weekend. Kicks off Wednesday night, and again, I'll be covering Southside Flyers versus Melbourne Boomers at the State Basketball Centre. Cannot wait. Always a good one when the Melbourne teams go head to head. Townsville Fire and the Adelaide Lightning follows that up on Friday night. Saturday night, Bendigo Spirit and Sydney Flames and Perth Lynx will host the Caps over in Perth for the late game. And then on Sunday, the Boomers take on the Adelaide Lightning in their first home game of the season. Just a brief look at the fixture, Kristen. Any one of those games stand out to you more than the others?
I gotta say, I'm interested to see what happens between the Lynx and the Caps, just to see how they match up against each other and if either of them have, taken any lessons from last weekend. I think that's interesting in just the terms of what we can expect moving forward from both sides.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, my big one is that the Wednesday night game. These two are tipped to be right up the top end come the end of the year. So I think it's a real big test and probably the first big test. Flyers obviously got pushed by the Lightning, but I think we'll really see what those two teams are made of. And of course, the Flames' first game as well against the Spirit. Got to travel on the road. It's a hard one to make to Bendigo. Everyone talks about the trip to Townsville, Kristen, but I think this year the Spirit might want to make that home court advantage just hurt a little bit more.
Yep, yeah, I can definitely see that. I am looking forward to that matchup. The almost battle of the young guns and the teams that struggled last year. And I think it'll be exciting to see Shyla Hill and Annalie Maley face off again. And you're right, like talk about a road trip. It's a long way down to Bendigo once you hit Melbourne, so the Flames will have plenty of time to prepare.
Stick around on the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel for more women's hoops actions across the year. We'll be back every week with the talking points out of each round. Make sure you stick onto our socials as well. Inner Sanctum _AU on Twitter, and of course, Inner Sanctum on Facebook. We'll have obviously WNBL articles coming out across the year. A bit of our match coverage, player interviews, analysis. That's going to be a huge season of hoops, and I cannot wait for round two. Kristen, thank you for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next week.
Thank you. And it was lovely to join you, and I'll see you next week.